Got all right. I'll just go ahead and get started. We'll go like this. I don't need to show any slides. I'll just go ahead and start talking. So thanks for having me. I am Brian House, and I work with Sharice and AK running our Montgomery Tech Lab Defense Accelerator out of Montgomery, and part of Treble One's Alabama Accelerator portfolio. And so I want to be kind of upfront about why I'm here. I'm not going to pretend that I have all the answers because nobody in the ecosystem does, and we'll get to some of that. But what I can offer is some perspective from spending a lot of time around the defense acquisition community from a different angle, from multiple different angles. A little bit about me. Most of my career was as a program manager in the Air Force. I served in program offices at Wright-Patterson, Peterson, Hanscom. Most of the time there was working in cyber operations systems, space operations, command and control, and ultimately landed at Eglin Air Force Base where I spent most of my active duty career and working on precision guided munitions, GPS modernization, position navigation and timing, and some other various classified programs. I will say I made my share of mistakes in those roles. I learned a lot from contractors and folks other around the community that helped me out a lot. But I got a lot of experience there. After that, I spent several years with Defense Acquisition University as a professor and strategic advisor, and that role helped me to learn even more about the ecosystem and how it actually works than any one single assignment that I had. Because when your job is to teach young program managers how to do their job, how the product moves from a contract all the way to the warfighter's hands, you got to understand how the machine works. The budgeting, the requirements, the contracting, the testing, the sustainment, and of course the politics of all that. So, and how each of those pieces kind of build on each other and ends up in a warfighter's hand. So, walking new PMs through that end-to-end process again and again kind of made hammered home the picture for me, and it made the system, the way the system operates, click. So now I'm on the accelerator side, and I get to sit across the table every week and try to be useful as these founders try to navigate the space. So that's kind of the problem that we're after as part of this program. So what I want to share today is not really a how-to. It's more like a set of patterns that we've seen, things the founders tend to learn as part of the program, and if not part of the program, sometimes they learn them the hard way, right? They've been in the ecosystem for a while, and they learn the hard way. So my hope is that if any of this resonates with you, it gives you a little bit of timing to figure it out the easy way, not the hard way, right? Um, I've grouped what I want to share today into four areas. What the founders learn after they enter the space, how they reposition based on those findings or those lessons, the common mishaps that we see, and how to avoid them, and then finally, what it takes to move from initial interest to a real sustained engagement. So. Let's dig in here. So the first thing that founders learn, usually the hard way, is that the Department of Defense is not one customer; it's hundreds of customers, and that's sometimes comes as a little bit of a surprise. But I'll talk a little bit about that. Founders walk in thinking that they're selling to the DoD, when actually what they find after a little learning is that there is an ecosystem of services, agencies, program offices, primes, labs, end users, acquisition organizations, science and technology organizations, innovation hubs, And I could go on and on, right? They each have their own mission, their own budget, their own authorities, and the Air Force is not like the Army. The Air Force Research Lab is not the Air Force Life Cycle Management Center. All these organizations are separate. A program office is not a major command. Um, and so a founder who thinks they can find one door to knock on and the magic contract is going to happen is probably going to be lost for a long time. So the second thing that they learn is that the language matters more than they expected. And what I mean by that, if you walk into a meeting and you don't know what TRL 6 means, or you don't know what an OV1 is, or you don't know what a ConOps is, or what a CSO versus a OTA versus a SBIR, the customer figures out very quickly, and often they don't say anything. They stay polite, um, but the meeting's effectively over because they've decided that you're not ready. The language isn't a barrier to keep you out, but it builds credibility within the system that tells the customer that you've done your homework. Founders that learn this early and put it to work actually become fluent and they normally pull ahead fast. So very important part of what we're doing. The third thing is that technology is rarely the deciding factor, and that's sometimes surprising too. This is the one that probably surprises the commercial founders the most. You spent years building something elegant, it performs well, it's novel, and then you walk into a DoD meeting and the questions are about manufacturing capability, ITAR compliance, contract vehicles, sustainment plans, data rights, and whether your tech can be integrated into their existing system that they're operating now. So maybe 10% of the conversation is going to be about how good your technology actually is, and the other 90% is going to be everything around that. So that's a big one. The fourth thing, commercial founders they're used to closing deals in weeks. I'm trying to get to the time aspect of it. They're often used to closing deals in weeks. In defense, the cycle from initial interest to a real production contract can be 2, 3, sometimes 5 years. And so, for example, SBIR phase one to phase two is a year. The phase two transition contract is another 2 to 3 years. And if you're not capitalizing and capitalized in a way that you can survive that runway, then you don't have you'll be out before you'll run out before you actually get your program fielded, right? So those four lessons, the DoD is not one customer, language matters, technology isn't the deciding factor, and the timeline is long. That's what every founder learns in the first 6 to 12 months, and once they internalize them, the entire game changes. So those are the big four. So what do smart ones do with the lessons learned? They reposition. So first, uh, repositioning move is narrowing. Most often, almost always, founders come in saying that our technology has applications across all the services and multiple primes, and then they realize that's not really a strategy, that's a hope. And the companies make progress. The companies that will make the best progress narrow down. They pick one service, they pick one platform, they pick one mission area, and they pick one program office and one contact in all the organizations they're going to work with for that product, and they go deeper. Um, and that means knowing the program manager, knowing the requirements, knowing the acquisition pathway, knowing the budget cycle, knowing what last year's contract looked like, what's the next steps in the roadmap look like. We'll talk more about that later. Um, You can't do that across five services for a small company. But you can do it for one, and you can do it well for one. And so once you have the one customer who knows you and trusts you, that's the foundation that you build on. Second repositioning move is the product, not technology. So I talk to companies all the time who describe themselves by the core technology, the algorithm, the sensor, the whatever widget it is. After they've been in the space for a while, the smart ones start describing themselves by their product, not just the core capability, the launch system, the C2 interface, the support footprint, the training, the integration kit. And the reason is because DoD doesn't really buy technologies, they buy a complete fielded, supportable product. And the companies that figure this out the fastest either build out the mission pieces or partner with someone who has them. So an important one. And third is repositioning. The repositioning move is the value proposition. Commercial pitch decks lead with disruption. We are 10 times faster, cheaper, smaller. That works well for venture capital audience. It does not work so well for a colonel whose job it is to keep aircraft mission capable for the next 3 to 5 years, right? The repositioning that wins is something like we solve a specific operational gap. We plug into your existing infrastructure. We have a clear sustainment plan that's and a contract vehicle that you can use. Same technology, but a completely different framing of that technology. And fourth is the team itself. Companies that come in with a pure commercial team, engineers, often very engineering heavy, always end up adding someone with a DoD background that understands and can speak the language, right? A retired colonel, former program manager, not because they want an inside person on the team, but because the ecosystem rewards relationships and institutional knowledge that you just can't fake, right? So, a lot of times founders who resist this it's a challenge, and the ones that embrace it tend to move ahead pretty quickly. Um, and so the next one, common missteps. So let's talk about common missteps. These I'll keep pretty light. Misstep number one is overstating your TRL, your technology readiness level. Founders seem to almost always claim a higher TRL than what they have. Say something like we are TRL 6. And then you ask, what was the relevant environment? Who ran the test? Where's the data? And the answer doesn't hold up, right? So there's lots of things around that. These DoD evaluators have seen every flavor of TRL inflation, and they catch it immediately. So you definitely need to understand what TRL means before you start talking about it with DoD customers. Misstep two is pitching the same deck to every customer. The science and technology audience wants to see TRL progression, demonstration plans. Um, that's separate from the acquisition audience who wants to see cost, schedule, and risk. And they want to see other things as well. And I won't dive too deep into these, but the operational community is going to want to see the ConOps and budget costs. How sustainable is it? How's it going to help the operators? So it's not a one size fits all briefing. It's tailoring to that audience in the room every time, depending on who you're talking to. Just because you're talking to someone who wears a uniform doesn't mean they all have the same perspective. And so misstep number four, I would say, is making SBIR the destination. Um, Phase one and phase two are entry points. I say this so often. They're not the goal. The goal is transition, a real production contract with real program of record. Founders who optimize their entire business around stacking SIBRs end up trapped in what some call the SIBR purgatory. They're surviving on these R&D dollars and they're never gonna actually field a program. The fix that we talk about is to designate or design every phase two with the next step already in hand. So there are multiple ways to do that, but you need to establish that you've got a bridge to the next step while you're on contract working that effort. And misstep number five is neglecting relationships. Also talk a lot about relationships. So I make sure that everyone internalizes this one. The defense ecosystem runs on relationships, not nepotism, but trust that's earned over time, right? Getting to know these people, talking to them. They know your name, they know your tech, they know your team. The founders who treat every meeting transactionally and don't follow up, don't show up at the industry days, don't engage at conferences, they fall behind. The ones who invest genuine relationships and invest their time to meet with these folks, these program managers, the primes, the other founders included, they build a network that opens doors for years for them. So there's not a shortcut to that, really. You either invest in the people and the relationships, or you stay on the outside. So just a quick story. It kind of incorporates some of all that. We had a company in a recent cohort with strong tech, a patented metal manufacturing process, and a team that knew the DoD could use what they built, but they had no idea how to sell it. The first few months, they led with technology, and they got a lot of those polite nods, like, "Yeah, they got the meetings. Well, yeah, that sounds great." Um, but then they shifted. They learned the language. They learned and they figured out who their real audience was. The sustainment organizations, the depots, the program offices, the primes, and what each one cared about. And they stopped pitching a printer and they started talking about readiness. They started talking about lead time, sustainment costs, how that was going to save money and make the operator's job better. And so now they're getting real traction and having conversations that wouldn't have happened a year ago without the knowledge that they gained and dedicated to learning. That's what the fluency does. It gets you in the door and keeps you there. Um, so how do you actually move from we're interested in defense to we're meaningfully engaged and here's what I've seen across companies that make that jump. Um, First, they do the work to understand the customer's problem even better than the customer does. They read requirements documents, they study the platform manuals, they understand the budget line, they know which CR is hitting which programs, and they walk into a meeting, the customer is surprised by how much they already know, and that surprise becomes trust. Second thing is they identify a single beachhead customer and they earn that relationship. They spend time on that relationship. One program manager, one end user, one advocate inside the organization. Not five or 10, just one. They make that customer's life easier. They show up when they say they will. They deliver what they promised, and they let that relationship become a reference for the next 10 engagements that they have, hopefully. Um, and third, they build a complete product story, not just around the tech. So they know who their integration partners are. They know how it gets sustained. They know who supplies it, who does the training, um, who the what the data right strategy is, what they're willing to negotiate. and they have a contract vehicle figured out. If it's one that belongs to the partner, or they figured out some other way to get to them, and they're not asking the customer to fill the gaps. They're showing up with a complete answer on why you want to work with them. Fourth, they treat the tech roadmap as a living document. I harp on tech roadmap quite a bit, but it's not a slide that they make once for a pitch. It's a real roadmap that they update periodically. It shows where the funding is, what milestones you as a company want to hit, what's your path to the end state, which is not a SBIR, but it's a fielded program. And when a program manager picks up that roadmap, they should see exactly how their dollars fit into that end plan that you've provided them. So I think that one's important. Um, Fifth, they show up. I touched on this earlier. Industry days, DFIDIC, AFA, AUSA, local SBA events, base visits. There's tons of things that you can do to be present. Don't wait to be invited. That they're showing up because they belong there and they've invested that time and energy into making everyone know that they're around. Six, they build a team that includes defense fluency, whether you capture that through an accelerator like ours or bringing in an advisor or board member or a paid mentor. They don't try to do it alone. Companies that try to go it alone must learn. They always learn that it's a lot slower and probably twice as expensive to do that. Find a way to get that defense fluency. So when you put those things together, deeper customer understanding, benchhead relationship, complete product, a living roadmap, ecosystem presence, and defense fluency, um, all on your team, you've moved to from interest to engagement. So you're not no longer breaking in, and you've gotten in, right? You're in the inside. So um, I'll wrap it up. I'll leave you with this. The defense innovation ecosystem is hard. It's slow. It's confusing. It rewards patience and punishes shortcuts. The technology, your technology you've poured years into is necessary, but that's rarely sufficient, right? Customers who succeed are the ones who keep showing up. Customers who learn the language, who narrow their focus, they build relationships, they tell creditable roadmap stories, they understand the customer's word better than the customer does, and they build a complete product, not just a technology. And they treat every misstep as data, not a dead end, because there will be missteps. Um, so, if any of this resonates with you and you want to go deeper, I'd encourage you to look at our next accelerator. It's free, non-dilutive, and it's built specifically for companies that are trying to do exactly what we just talked about. And we cover in much more depth all those topics and many more. So applications are open for another 3 days, close out on the 15th. So I hope that the last few minutes was useful. You got something out of it, even if you don't apply. But I would like to see lots of applications and look forward to getting to know you all better. And that's all I've got, Sharice. So happy to take any questions.
Thanks a lot, Brian. Tim, do you have any questions about the program or anything that Brian outlined?
I don't really have, well, maybe I do have a question. I'm at a very early stage in my venture. It is dual use. I mean, I think your uh, defense accelerator would be appropriate. Um, but I'm quite frankly, I'm more focused on the Port of Mobile area. It's got more Coast Guard and naval applications connected to it. And I'm just wondering if the ecosystem in Montgomery would still be supportive.
Tell us a little bit more about, I guess, your product or solution. I think that might be able to give us a little bit more context, certainly.
Sure. So you can think of what I'm building as an intelligent cell tower that's positioned on a surface vessel. So it has disaster recovery, business continuity capabilities. It has the capability to support large events, large venues like the professional sports venues on the Ohio River in Cincinnati. But it also has capabilities such as intelligence gathering, denial of service, both on offensive as well as defensive capabilities, and of course, psychological operations. So there's two components. One is the communications electronic platform that at this stage is really a matter of off the shelf components that I'm integrating in a novel way. And the second component is positioning it on a mobile platform that can leverage waterways to get where trucks and vehicles can't, and has the advantage of using cellular connectivity for the 3.9 billion IoT devices that are connected by cellular, and does has better building penetration and doesn't require line of sight to the sky for urban areas that satellite has challenges with.
Um, Thank you for that. That's helpful. And Brian, please stop me if I'm speaking just incorrectly. But I guess as I look at that, while yes, I can certainly see your naval and your Coast Guard and your portomobile operations, I think I see some of the intersection points with our 26 Network Operations Squadron that's in Montgomery from a cyber side of the house, and certainly with Air University from a wargaming and intelligence side of the house as well. Just from local units that I know we do have some not only intersection points, but also kind of have some expertise that we often reach out to.
Yeah,
That
and
makes
so
sense.
Therese is exactly right. And we also, I mean, so we the program we're evolving, right? The longer we're doing this, and the curriculum is pretty Air Force flavored, but I tell everyone it applies to the other services as well, right? The language that I talk about is not just the language of the Air Force. The language kind of goes across other services. There are some different terms, when you go from Navy to Air Force, but the way the services are organized are very similar. The things that they care about are even more similar, right, from one community to another. So I would say if you're interested and think that your product is something that the Navy needs, you may be you may be surprised and find that other services may need the same thing. And so the type of thing that you're talking about, while I'm not an expert in that domain, I know there are activities going on in all of the services to that end. So I would say definitely not outside of the scope of what we're going to cover in Montgomery.
Yeah, I think one
That's
of the things that we've tried to do, Tim, with our program, and what we've been refining over the last few cycles and cohorts, is a way to make sure that everyone coming in the cohort has an opportunity to engage and speak with potential clients and or those that are doing the work, right? It's one thing for us to just sit here and teach what we say is theory and what we may have experienced. And it's another for you to have an opportunity to be in front of someone that's buying, that's using technology, that's a true field user or a decision maker. And so I think we've grown the program, or at least, fine-tuned it over the last 6 to 12 months, that you do have that face time and you do have that engagement time. That person that you're speaking to locally may not be the one that's going to buy your solution tomorrow. However, they may be very close to the person that does, and or be familiar with units, be it Air Force wide, COCOM wide, or other service agency wide, that does give you some of the intelligence that helps you to know a little bit more as you're selling to the person that you really have to get in front of. And sometimes that is the guy right? Just depending on what your solution is. But that's one of the things that we've tried to focus on over the last year is to give you those reps and cycles because going in on your first shot doesn't mean that you're walking away with a, $2 million SIBR or $5 million contract, but having some repeated reps at that does increase your probability of getting in front of the right person and actually walking away with that.
Yeah,
Great
there's
to know.
gonna be lots of people that are interested in what you're doing, the way you described it.
For sure.
And we'll refine that message so that it's directed more towards an operational end state or a product that the operator is using, and what con ops does it should it be incorporated in. So, yeah, I strongly encourage you to apply if you can.
I will definitely consider it. I'm excited based on what you've told me. Brian, you mentioned one other thing about having someone from the team with really credibility with the DoD through experience and whatnot. I've tried to recruit folks, and I've talked to a lot of retired Navy, retired Coast Guard, and the feedback I get typically is they're looking for something more stable than a startup. If you have any other suggestions, I actually had a couple of politicians who have some background with the services, but I'm just a little tentative to pull some,
As you should.
somebody that could have baggage that may not be helpful. And
Yeah,
so if
it's
you have any
tough.
suggestions, I
I
that
wish
would
I
be
had a
helpful.
good suggestion. So I was in the same boat, retired lieutenant colonel, and I didn't want to take a lot of risk either. It's like it takes a special kind of person. Yeah, I don't have a magic answer for that one. It's going to be about going out and networking, getting to know people. Go to some of these events. Find people that are like-minded and interested in that technology area. Networking is huge, and that'll probably be my best advice for finding someone. Cast a wide net. Find someone that's got some knowledge in that area. I'm sure they're out there.
As much as I fear saying this, you probably have to go young. Younger folks will take greater risk, right? And they're more apt to take the risk on a startup than your 20, 30-year-old crusty colonel that, just wants stability and another check. Granted, you got your pros and cons when you go young, but at the same respect, they are riskier and sometimes more innovative as well.
Charisse, I appreciate that. That's good to know. I think that's an avenue I'm going to have to pursue.
I mean, trust, it's a little scary. However,
Sure,
they are definitely riskier and a lot of times very talented.
I agree with you. Let me ask you, in terms of Montgomery itself, you mentioned industry days and conferences. You're fairly close to Atlanta and some of the other cities. Are there events that take place right in Montgomery that would be useful?
There are. So actually next week, Montgomery and their local AFCEA chapter will host the Montgomery IT Summit. And so that IT Summit brings in probably about 500 to 600 individuals into Montgomery to talk about everything from, I think the theme this year is around AI, Gen AI. So, but they bring in folks from DISA. They also bring in folks from air staff and out of the DC area to speak on cyber AI and software development. And then in August, the last week of August will be the Air Force, the annual Department of the Air Force and Cyber Power, Department of the Air Force IT and Cyber Power Conference, and that's DFIDIC. And that conference brings in anywhere from 5 to 7,000
Wow.
people. And so they'll have government agencies, you'll see Navy, Army, primarily Air Force, but industry players from all over will be here during that week. And for this accelerator cohort, we will actually host our demo day during that event. And so the ability to be visible in front of quite an audience of folks that are in town.
That's great to know. Thank you so much.
Sure.
It's an excellent opportunity. Any more questions about the program or anything else?
Not at this point. If something comes up, I'll definitely reach out to you. If while I'm working on the application, would it be appropriate to reach out to you as well?
Yeah, absolutely.
Absolutely. Just let us know. I think all of our information is on the website, as well as LinkedIn and other areas. So if you need anything, don't hesitate to reach out. We're
Thank you.
both
I really
available.
appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you for joining in, Tim.
Great to meet you both, and thanks again. I hope that we'll be talking again very soon.
Sounds great.
All right.
Okay.
Thanks, Tim.
Have a great day.
You too.
Bye.
Hey, Brian.
Hey,